Shalom Chavrim, James Trim here, and we're going to be starting Lesson 8 on the Book of Enoch in our series. Before we get started, I wanted to say a word about the backdrop here. This is not, I know they actually sell them or they have them in software or whatnot, fake library backgrounds for podcasts and such. There's nothing fake back here. That's my actual library. We're in my study and it actually wraps around the room. But my wonderful wife saw my last video and says, "Husband, you've got to straighten out your library behind you. It looks awful." So I straightened out the books, but the reality is this is a working research library. You guys that benefit from my writings and the material that I'm teaching probably realize that I'm utilizing this library every day. So books are getting pulled out and putting back in, and then files are shoved up in shelves. And so I cleaned it up a bit to straighten out all the books and make sure that it looks more tidy. But this is the real thing, folks. It's not one of these purchased backdrops that podcasters use. That's the actual study library behind me. So we're going to get into some very exciting material this week, and we really started to scratch upon it last week in the portion on the wisdom of Elohim and the messianic prophecy attached to that. But this week, we're going to start, and I don't know how far we'll get into it, but we're going to start getting into some of the really deep material about the Messiah that teaches things about the Messiah that you are going to be shocked were actually in an Old Testament book, if you will. Not that the Book of Enoch is part of the actual Old Testament, except for the Ethiopic Orthodox Church, but largely because it was either removed or never allowed in by those that were canonizing. At any rate, the Book of Enoch has some really exceptional material about the Messiah. And we're going to be getting into the material starting today, at least starting today, with which is the very material that was the reason that the rabbis admitted to suppressing the Book of Enoch, and we'll talk about that either this week or next week, depending on how far we get along in today's study. So we're in the Book of Enoch, chapter 45, which begins the second of the three parables in the Book of Parables. And so starting in verse 1, it says, "And this is the second parable concerning those who deny the name of Yahweh Zavaot and the congregation of the set-apart ones." And that's really what this parable is concerning. And that's going to become very, very significant. So I want you to remember this first verse that's moving forward and telling you that this is going to be about those who deny the name of Yahweh Zavaot and the congregation of the set-apart ones. And into the heaven they shall not ascend, and on the earth they shall not come. Such shall be the lot of the sinners who have denied the name of Yahweh Zavaot, and who are thus preserved for the day of suffering and tribulation. So this has got a lot to do with certain deniers that are that things don't go well for them because they were deniers. Verse 3, "On that day, my chosen one," this is one of the four titles of the Messiah in this material that we discussed when we started the book of parables. "On that day, my chosen one shall sit on the throne of glory, and shall try their works. Now, remember in the last parable, we left off, if you will, with the wisdom material, with the Messiah ascending, being at at the right hand of the Father, or with the angels, as we see at the in Psalm 110, and that's where we see him here, and it's going to tie Psalm 110, therefore, together with Daniel 7. Now, that's very significant. It's very significant, this tying together of Psalm 110 with Daniel 7, because at Yeshua's trial, go grab the verse. I hadn't planned to cite it, but then this is just an active study, and I saw something there that I didn't even see when I was preparing my notes. So here we go. This is going to be a special edition, and that is in Matthew chapter 26, verse 64. Yeshua is responding at his trial, and he says, "You have said, therefore, I say to you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man," that's Daniel 7, as we'll find out here, "that sits here on the right hand," that's Psalm 110. Elohim is coming on the clouds of heaven, and that is so it's sort of a blending together of Psalm 110 and the Son of Man in Daniel 7. It brings together Psalm 110:1 and Daniel 7:13. It's an amalgamation, and it is directly influenced by the book of Enoch, because the book of Enoch has paralleled Psalm 110 previously in parable 1, as we saw in, I believe it was, going by memory here, it was chapter 42, I believe, which dealt with the wisdom. Yeah, and that paralleled Psalm 110. And now we're going into material that parallels Daniel 7, and this verse is tying them together, and they are also Yeshua ties them together at his trial in Matthew 26, verse 64. So we want to write that down in connection with this material and remember it forever. Okay. Back to the beginning of verse 3. "On that day, my chosen one shall sit on the throne of glory and shall try their works, and their places of rest shall be innumerable, and their souls shall grow strong within them when they see my chosen ones and those who have called upon my glorious name." Now, two of these names or terms for the Messiah also have a group associated with them. The chosen one has the chosen ones. The righteous one has the righteous ones. Okay? And he's sitting on the throne of glory, and that's going to be explained and important as we move forward. It's synonymous with him sitting at the right hand in Psalm 110, proceeding from the personification of wisdom in 1 Enoch chapter 42. All right, verse 4, "And I will cause my chosen one to dwell among them." Wait a minute. I will cause my chosen one to dwell among them. That's what we saw about the wisdom in 42. So the chosen one is the wisdom of Elohim. "Then I will cause my chosen one to dwell among them, and I will transform the heaven and make it an eternal blessing and a light. And I'll transform the earth and make it a blessing, and I will cause my chosen ones to dwell upon it, but the sinners and evildoers shall not set foot thereon. For I have provided and satisfied with shalom my righteous ones, and have caused them to dwell before me, but for the sinners there is judgment impending with me, so that I shall destroy them from the face of the earth." And then we get to chapter 46, and chapters 46 and chapters 47 uh, strongly parallel Daniel chapter 7. And that's very key and important, as we just pointed out. Um, and it's really sort of the climax of this material. This second parable, the middle parable, and the book of parables really is the climax of the messianic expectation built into the book of Enoch. Now, let's look at Daniel 7 real quick to kind of and realize now that assuming that the book of Enoch is true, which is the axiom upon which we're building this study, because it's certainly intended to be interpreted as if it was authentic, then Daniel is actually making use of the book of Enoch, not vice versa. And Psalm 110 was making use of the book of Enoch, not vice versa. And Yeshua, at his trial, is making use of the book of Enoch by bringing those two quotations, Psalm 110:1 and Daniel 7:13, into an amalgamation. He is doing the same thing, and he is at a key point in his trial. He is responding by boldly identifying himself as the figure that the book of Enoch is speaking of in these chapters. And these people in the first century, at his trial, they knew the book of Enoch. It hadn't been suppressed at that time. There were multiple copies of it found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was Jude quoted from it. There's 120 references to it in the New Testament. It was one of the books back then. And so when you understand that it was one of the books back then, you understand that when Yeshua was boldly identifying himself with this figure in the book of Enoch, as we study the book of Enoch, you'll realize what a bold statement he was making in his trial. Okay, so going to Daniel 7, and we're not going to read the whole thing because it also includes an apocalyptic vision that's not strongly relevant to what we're talking about. But in Daniel chapter 7, one of the things that is seen is the Ancient of Days, starting in let's start in 10, or 9, verse 9. I beheld till thrones, plural, that becomes important here. Thrones, plural, were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. So now suddenly throne is singular here. So the Ancient of Days has a throne, but plural thrones were actually set down, and he sat in one of them. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him. This is what we saw in 1 Enoch chapter 14. Remember, the book of Enoch is presenting this material to us, and Enoch is learning this material like peeling an onion and getting deeper and deeper into the onion as he learns more and more, and it gets more and more intense in the layers. Okay, so remember, 1 Enoch 14 first introduced us to the material the throne room material that we're seeing here in Daniel 7. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands and thousands ministered unto him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. And I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spoke, I beheld even till the beast was slain. This is referring to material. We're not going to do a whole study of Enoch Daniel chapter 7. There's a whole prophetic thing of 4 beasts that you're probably familiar with, but we're not going into right now. and his body destroyed and given to the burning fire. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. And I saw the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, uh, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given to him dominion and glory and a kingdom. Um, uh, and all people, nations, and languages would serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. Excuse me. And then we get some explanation if we skip down to verse 22. Until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. So the Son of Man, on the one hand, it's the Son of Man. On the other hand, he corresponds to a group, the saints, or the set apart ones, the Kodashim. So just like you have the chosen one in the book of Enoch and the chosen ones, and you have the one of the other two titles for the Messiah. Can't remember at the moment, but it's also associated with a group, the righteous one, and the righteous ones. And then you have here also the Son of Man is associated with is associated with this group, the Kodashim. Until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the set apart ones of the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. So the Son of Man represents the saints, and the saints represent the Son of Man, if you will. There's an allegorical relationship, a typological relationship between the two. And that gets into a whole thing between Israel, the son of Elohim, being Israel and being the Messiah. I guess I'll pause and parenthetically discuss that. In Matthew chapter 2, there's a prophecy about the Messiah that is quoted, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." In Matthew chapter 2, the son that's called up out of Egypt is the Messiah. But it's quoting Hosea, a prophecy in Hosea. I think it's, let's see here, Hosea 11:1. I have Hebrew Matthew right in front of me. Let me check. Hosea 11:1. Yeah. So, in Hosea 11:1, if you read the actual text that's being quoted, the son of Elohim is Israel. That's because there's a typological relationship between the Messiah and Israel. They were both born based on a miracle on their mother's womb. Sarah was barren. Miriam was a virgin. You have they both went down into Egypt in the early parts of their lives. Rome tried to destroy both of them. Both of them were resurrected. Both of them return in the last days. You can go on the parallel typological relationship between the Messiah and Israel. So also you have this concept in the Zohar of the son of Yah, Ben Yah, and the two pillars of the Godhead, two other pillars, the three pillars of the Godhead. The Son of Yah is identified as the middle pillar, and you have the two outer pillars, which are identified as Father and Mother. And in the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe of the Chabad movement, he identifies this son of Yah also with Israel having the Torah within them, which means that they have the they have the wisdom of Torah that they have in their understanding within them, and that is why they are the embodiment of the son of Elohim, because of the wisdom and understanding corresponding with the father and mother gestating within them and producing within them the son of knowledge of Torah. That's all in the Tanya, and it's really deep stuff. But I digress from a digression of a digression. But that's what we get into when we get into some really deep study here. So getting back to Daniel 7. um, uh, well, actually, I think we're done with Daniel 7. You got the idea there, and of course you can study that in more detail. But we want to go back to, of course, the book of Enoch and chapter 46. Um, well, actually, before we do, we have a handout on First Enoch 46, 47, and Daniel 7. Excuse me, it's a high allergy day today, apparently. First Enoch 46 and 47, and Daniel 7, if you pull out your first handout here. And it starts out, it says, the handout says, introductory information. Um, the 4th century church father Jerome writes of the Nazarenes and the Ebionites. He says, what shall I say of the Ebionites who pretend to be Christians? Today there still exists amongst the Jews and all the synagogues of the East a heresy which is called that of the Manians, which is still condemned by the Pharisees. Its followers are ordinarily called Nazarenes. They believe that Messiah, the Son of God, was born of the Virgin Mary, and they hold him to be the one who suffered under Pontius Pilate and ascended to heaven, in whom also we believe. Now, we do a whole study, and I've done whole teachings on this ancient sect of the Nazarenes. They had two primary qualities. They were, first of all, distinct from the Ebionites. This quote doesn't make that clear, but others do. They believed Yeshua was the Messiah, and they were Torah observant. They considered themselves Jews, not Christians, and so the point here, for the reason for this citation, is that Jerome refers to these Nazarenes and Ebionites both as Menim. That the rabbinic Jews call them Manians. Well, Manians is obviously a Latinization of Menim. They're, according to the dictionary of the Targumim, Talmud, Babli, Yerushalayim, and Midrashic literature by Marcus Jastrow, that's one of the longest titles. It defines mean as sectarians, infidel, a Jewish infidel mostly applied to Jew Christians, it says. Now, of course, he uses the term Jew Christians, but what he's really referring to is Ebionites and Nazarenes, although the groups themselves historically did not identify themselves as being Christians at all. They did not use that term because they did not believe they weren't part of the Christians. They were a unique group of Jews. A lot of scholars believe that this word mean may have originated from the Hebrew initials for the phrase believers in Yeshua of Nazareth, or Yeshua the Nazarene, and it may have also just been a memory device that brought the two together. At any rate, the Mishnah says that the Menim taught, quote, that there were many powers in heaven, in Tractate Sanhedrin 4:5. The Gemara to that Mishnah records a debate as to how rabbinic Jews should respond to the Menim, regarding the plural thrones mentioned in Daniel 7:9. Now, you notice I pointed out that the word thrones there was plural, and then the Ancient of Days sits on a throne, but then the Son of Man comes along and he reigns and is given a kingdom and apparently has a throne also. So that you imagine side-by-side thrones, if you will. And this word thrones being plural in Daniel 7:9 was a point of contention between the Nazarenes, the original Jewish followers of Yeshua, and the Pharisees. So a debate is recorded in the Babylonian Talmud on page 34b. Have it here in your handout. Now that is satisfactory for all the other verses. Picking up in the middle of the debate here on the proof text that the Talmud is proposing, and it says, oh, okay, this proof text, it satisfies all the other verses. However, there's another one. How do we explain till thrones were placed? Daniel 7:9. One throne was for himself, and one for David. David being a title for the Messiah. Even as it has been taught, one was for himself and one for David. This is Rabbi Akiva's view. Rabbi Yosei protested to him, Akiva, how long will you profane the Shekinah? Rather, one throne for justice and the other for mercy. Now, that's even just as helpful, really, because justice and mercy here would be synonymous with the two outer pillars of the three pillars of the Godhead, which are justice would be Gevarah, and mercy would be Chesed. The three pillars of the Godhead are, there's something called the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life is made up of 10 Sephirot that are organized under 3 columns. The middle column is called the middle pillar of the Godhead, and the 2 outer columns are called the pillar of mercy and the pillar of judgment, and sometimes they're called the father and mother, while the middle pillar of the Godhead is then called the Son of Yah. Okay? So the Chabad, you've probably heard of, the Orthodox Hasidic movement known as Chabad, is actually, the name Chabad is actually taken from the initial letters from the words, the Hebrew words, Chachma, Beinah, and Da'at, which are the Hebrew words meaning wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, referring to the top Sephirot, the defining Sephirot, if you will, of the 3 pillars of the Godhead. With knowledge then being, and kind of get into some deep stuff, there's knowledge, Da'at, is the flip side of Keter. It's sometimes called a semi-Sephirot because of that, but at any rate, knowledge is then the bringing together of wisdom and understanding, because wisdom from above gestates in our understanding and gives birth to knowledge in us. And so the point is that this is a reference to the concept then of the 3 pillars of the Godhead, and it's saying one of the thrones is for the pillar of judgment, Gevarah, and one of the thrones is for the pillar of mercy, Chesed, which is, if you understand these things in the rabbinic literature, it's the same as saying that one of these thrones is for the father and one of them is for the mother, as 2 different aspects of the one Elohim. Okay. So Rabbi Yosei hasn't really been that helpful, because what we really end up here then is a debate between whether these 2 thrones are occupied by father and mother, or whether they're occupied by the Father and the Son of Man, the Son of Yah, if we follow Rabbi Yosei. Or really, we're not limited to 2 thrones. Maybe there are 3, and that correspond with the 3 pillars of the Godhead. Because Rabbi Yosei has brought in the idea then of the 2 outer pillars of the 3 pillars. Okay, Rabbi Yosei protests to him, Akiva, how long will you profane the Shekinah? Rather, one throne for justice and the other for mercy. Did he accept this answer from him or not? In other words, did Rabbi Akiva like Rabbi Yosei's argument? Come in here, for it has been taught, one is for justice and the other for charity, or mercy. This is Rabbi Akiva's view. Said Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah to him, Akiva, what have you to do with Agada? So, in other words, apparently Rabbi Akiva adopted that view and began to teach that view. And as we pointed out, that was just as problematic if you understand what these things are in the rabbinic literature, as we elucidated them for you just now. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah says, Akiva, what have you to do with Agada? What is Agada? Agada is narrative material. Okay. What have you to do with Agada? Confine yourself to the study of Negaim and Oholot. These are civil issues, basically. But one was a throne and the other a footstool, a throne for his seat and a footstool to support his feet, Isaiah 66:1. So they basically, what happened is that Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah tells Akiba, you're still messed up. Just leave this agadic material alone. You're not good at it. You gave away the farm, because the Nazarenes come in and they're saying this is the Ancient of Days is the Father, and the Son is the Messiah. The Son of Man is the Messiah, and your interpretation went along with them, and then your interpretation went along with the father and mother, and apparently, if you understand the material, implicit the son as well, and so he says, don't try and debate Agada with the Nazarenes. You tripped up, and gave them material, if you will. Okay, so this is really good stuff in our understanding how the Nazarenes understood Daniel chapter 7. And they understand Daniel chapter 7 this way because of the book of Enoch. Well, and also because of Yeshua's own statement in this trial. There's a good book about this, The Jewish Gospels by Daniel Buyarna. He's not a believer in Messiah. He's an Orthodox Jew, one of the great Talmudic scholars of our age, frankly. And he wrote this little book. And a lot of this book deals with we're going to cover some references to this book later in this study. We may not get to it today, maybe in next week's study, but he basically says, yeah, this Daniel 7 Ancient of Days, Son of Man material that was in the book of Enoch, this was what the Nazarenes believed. This is what the Jewish followers of Yeshua believed, and it wasn't a crazy belief at the time. That it was a normative Jewish belief. Okay. And he also, I think, says things that make it clear that this, if we take some things together, which we will look at together later, this is the very reason that the rabbis suppressed the book of Enoch. Okay, let us continue. The debate is simply similarly recorded in Tractate Hagiga, and I won't read that one. It's very similar. It's almost identical, so I'll leave that for you to read on your own in your own studies. And we'll move on to the Zohar identifies these two figures as the Ancient of Days and, get this, the Righteous One, which is one of the Book of Enoch's titles for the Messiah. It's also the title for the Messiah in Isaiah. Rabbi Shimon opened his discourse with the text, and I put my words in your mouth, Isaiah 51:16. He said, "How greatly is it incumbent on a man to study the Torah day and night, for the Holy One, blessed be he, is attentive to the voice of those who occupy themselves with the Torah, and through each fresh discovery made by them in the Torah, a new heaven is created." Our teachers have told us that at the moment when a man expounds something new in the Torah, his utterance ascends before the Holy One, blessed be he, and he takes it up and kisses it and crowns it with 70 crowns of graven and inscribed letters. When a new idea is formulated in the field of esoteric wisdom, it ascends and rests on the head of the tzaddik, the righteous one, the life of the universe. And then it flies off that and traverses 70,000 worlds until it ascends to the Ancient of Days. And inasmuch as all the words of the Ancient of Days are words of wisdom comprising sublime and hidden mysteries, that hidden word of wisdom that was discovered here when it ascends is joined to the words of the Ancient of Days and becomes an integral part of them, and enters into the 18 mystical worlds concerning which we read, "No eye has seen besides thee, O God." Isaiah 64:3. Isaiah 64:3 and that passage are important to the book of Enoch, and we'll cover that in a separate handout in this study. So don't forget, it's here. Might highlight it in your handout if you printed it out. Might. It's up to you, but it'll come back up. From thence they issue and fly to and fro, finally arriving perfected and completed before the Ancient of Days. All right, and then the next handout we'll cover on Daniel 7:13, the Son of Man is the Messiah. We got a couple of passages for this that make it clear. In the rabbinic literature, the Son of Man is identified in Daniel 7:13 as being the Messiah. The first one is Babylonian Talmud Sanhedrin 98a. Rabbi Alexandri said, Rabbi Joshua opposed two verses concerning the Messiah. "It is written, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven," Daniel 7:13. Whilst elsewhere it is written, "Behold, your king comes to you, lowly and riding upon an ass," Zechariah 9:9. So then he says there's a contradiction between two passages. This is something that happens in the rabbinical discourse a lot, because we have a rule of Hillel that says if two passages contradict each other, a third passage resolves the conflict. And we have a basic rule of hermeneutics that says that if two passages, our interpretation of two passages conflicts, we're misinterpreting one or both of them. And so his resolution is, if they are meritorious, he will come with the clouds of heaven; if not, lowly and riding upon an ass. Now, this section of Talmud discusses similar conflicting passages and also concludes that a possible interpretation is that he will come either at the due time, or he will come. We're getting again outside of our beyond this study. The point here is that the Daniel 7:13 is a messianic prophecy in rabbinic Judaism. In the Talmud. Okay, and also it's in the Zohar, Volume 1, page 145b. "And they will exercise dominion both on high and here below, as it is written, and behold, there came with the clouds of heaven one like unto the Son of Man," alluding to the Messiah. Can't get any more clear than that. Alluding to the Messiah, concerning whom it is written, "And in the days of those kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom," etc. Daniel 2:44. A side note, this is an interesting little statement in Zohar. It ties together the parallel prophecies of Daniel 7 and Daniel 2. And the rock cut out of a mountain without human hands being therefore identifiable with the Son of Man. And by the way, the rock cut out of a mountain without human hands When was a rock cut out of a mountain without human hands? In Daniel 2, the Torah. And so there's an identification implicit between the Torah and the Messiah. Um, Even without the Zohar, we can see that when we can understand Daniel 2 and Daniel 7 in light of one another. Okay. All that background material we needed before embarking upon chapters 46 and 47. The verse 1, chapter 46, verse 1, and there I saw one who had an ancient of days, and his head was white like wool. With him was another being whose countenance had the appearance of a man, one like the Son of Man. His had the appearance of a man, and his face was full of graciousness like one of the set apart angels. And I asked the angel who went with me, and showed me all the hidden things concerning that Son of Man, who he was, and whence he was, and why he went with the Ancient of Days. And he answered and said unto me, This is the Son of Man, who has righteousness, with whom dwelled righteousness, and who revealed all the treasures of that which is hidden, because Yahweh Zevaot has chosen him, and whose lot has the preeminence before Yahweh Zevaot in uprightness forever. And this Son of Man, whom you have seen, shall raise up kings and the kings and the mighty from their seats, and the strong from their thrones, and shall loosen the reins of the strong, and break the teeth of the sinners. And he shall put down the kings from their thrones, and kingdoms, because they do not extol and praise him, nor humbly acknowledge whence the kingdom was bestowed upon them. And he shall put down the countenance of the strong, and shall fill them with shame. And darkness shall be their dwelling, and worms shall be their bed, and they shall have no hope of rising from their beds, because they do not extol the name of Yahweh Zevaot. Oh, they're the ones that we read about in the last chapter that deny the name of Yahweh Zevaot. Verse 7, and these are they who judge the stars of heaven, and raise their hands against the Most High, and tread upon the earth, and dwell upon it, and all their deeds manifest unrighteousness, and their power rests upon their riches, and their faith is in their gods, which they have made with their hands, and they deny the name of Yahweh Zevaot. Keep reading that phrase, they deny the name of Yahweh Zevaot. And they persecute the houses of his congregations, and the faithful who hang upon the name of Yahweh Zevaot. So the faithful hang upon the name of Yahweh Zevaot, but this other group deny the name of Yahweh Zevaot. Chapter 47, verse 1. And in those days shall have ascended the prayer of the righteous, and the blood of the righteous from the earth before Yahweh Zevaot. In those days the set apart ones who dwell above in the heavens shall unite with one voice, and supplicate, and pray, and praise, and give thanks, and bless the name of Yahweh Zevaot on behalf of the blood of the righteous, which has been shed, and the prayer of the righteous may not be in vain before Yahweh Zevaot, the judgment may be done unto them, and that they may not have to suffer any more. In those days I saw the Ancient of Days, when he seated himself upon the throne of his glory, and the books of the living were opened before him, just like we see in Daniel 7. And all his host, which is in heaven above, and his counselors stood before him. And the hearts of the set apart were filled with joy, because the number of the righteous had been offered, and the prayer of the righteous had been heard, and the blood of the righteous had been required before Yahweh Zevaot. Chapter 48, verse 1. And in that place I saw the fountain of righteousness, which was inexhaustible, and around it were many fountains of wisdom, and all the thirsty drank of them, and were filled with wisdom, and in their dwellings were with the righteous and set apart chosen. And at that hour, the Son of Man was named in the presence of Yahweh Tzevaot. Ah, the Son of Man receives a name. Starting to get interesting here. The Son of Man receives a name in the presence of Yahweh Tzevaot, and his name before the Ancient of Days. And before the sun and the signs were created, before the stars of heaven were made, his name was named before Yahweh Tzevaot. So he received this name at the very beginning. He shall be a staff to the righteous, whereon to stay themselves and not fall. And he shall be the light of the Gentiles and the hope of those who were troubled of heart. That refers to Isaiah 42:6 and 49:6, and also Luke 3:32. All who dwell on earth shall fall down and worship before him, and will praise and bless him and celebrate with song Yahweh Tzevaot. And for this reason, he has been chosen and hidden before him before the creation of the world and forevermore. Let's pause for a moment there. First of all, let's talk about this name that he was given. If we look in Hebrews chapter 1, I had some additional notes here. See if I have that here. Yeah, Hebrews 1:4. Chapter 48, verse 3 goes with Hebrews 1:4. Hebrews 1:4, talking about the Messiah, says, being made so much better than the angels as he is by inheritance obtained a more excellent name than they. That, of course, is referring back to 48:3. 2 and 3. And at that hour the Son of Man was named in the presence of Yahweh Tzevaot, and his name before the Ancient of Days, and before the sun and the signs were created, signs being constellations, were created, before the stars of heaven were made, his name was named before Yahweh Tzevaot. All right. So that's important to remember. So next we have our handout that ties in with chapter 48, verse 6, which we just covered. Let me repeat 48, verse 6. And for this reason, he has been chosen and hidden before him, before the creation of the world and forevermore. And you may remember in our previous handout, I told you to remember actually two handouts back in the Zohar, chapter 1, verse 4b, where it was talking about the Ancient of Days and the Son of Man being the righteous one, and it cited Isaiah 64:3, no eye has seen beside you, O God. All right. This has to do with something called the Yayin HaMeshamar. First, let's look at Isaiah chapter 64, verse 3, and it's 4 in the depending on what edition you have, and whereof from of old men have not heard nor perceived by ear, neither the eye has seen an Elohim beside you who works for him that waits for him. So there's a bereta on this verse. What is a bereta? A bereta, I have to wet my whistler from time to time. A bereta is a pre-Talmudic tradition from the Ta'anim, from the time period of the Mishnah that doesn't appear in the Mishnah, but it appears multiple times, usually multiple times, in the Talmud or Talmuds, because there's a Babylonian and Jerusalem Talmud. And sometimes it also will show up in the Midrash Rabbah and the Zohar, etc. It's a bereta. Okay, so we have this bereta that shows up twice in the Talmud. In Barakote 34b, and in Sanhedrin 99a in the Babylonian Talmud, uh, concerning the understanding of Isaiah 64:3. And the phrase, eye has not seen. What is the meaning of eye has not seen? Rabbi Joshua ben Levi said, this is the wine that has been kept in its grapes from the 6 days of creation. Now, there's something very special about that. You have a handout here we're going over titled First Enoch 48:6 and the Yayin HaMeshemar. The Yayin HaMeshemar is the wine that has been kept in its grapes from the 6 days in the beginning. And it's, like some ultra-Orthodox Jews, for example, somebody will, for some laughs, bring wine to the Seder, to a Seder, and with the label Yayin HaMeshemar on it. The wine that has been kept. This is wine that has been kept for a great messianic feast at the end of the world, basically, at the coming of the Messiah. So 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9 also references this passage. It says, but as it is written, the eye has not seen and the ear has not heard, and into the heart of a son of man has not entered that which Allah has prepared for those who love him. Paul is citing this same Bereta. Let's look at it in context. Look at verses 7 through 9. It says, but we speak the wisdom of Elohim in the mystery that was hidden, and that Elohim has before separated, and before the age, and from before the ages of glory, that none of the authorities of this world knew. For if they had known it, they would not have crucified the Adon of glory. But as it is written, eye has not seen, and ear has not heard, and into the heart of the Son of Man has not entered that which Elohim has prepared for those who love him. Now, if we want to look at this context, Yeshua is referring to this, and you can look this up in your own studies as we move on. I cite Matthew 26:27 through 29, and the blood of the covenant. Lots of material here for you to study, I think, on your own in this handout, but let's move on to the next page and pick up where it says, in 1 Corinthians, Paul has brought up the Yayin HaMeshemar at the beginning of his letter, because he'll be addressing the wine throughout this letter, 1 Corinthians 5. So he ties it to the Passover wine. And to the Messianic banquet, and to the, okay, so he ties in with the blood of the Messiah, basically, and the blood of the Passover wine, the Seder wine, from Yeshua's last Seder. And I want to get down here on this page where it says Midrash Rabbah on Numbers 13:2. It says, it's another passage which cites this Bereta. It says, because he bared his soul unto death. That's talking about the righteous one, the servant, the messianic figure of Isaiah 53. It's Isaiah 53:12. And he bruised themselves with themselves, and bruised themselves with the Torah, which is sweeter than honey. And the Holy One, blessed be he, will hereafter give them to drink of the wine kept in its grapes since the 6 days of the beginning. So what's important here is the Midrash Rabbah actually ties the Yayin HaMeshemar with the blood of the Lamb of that is the servant and the righteous one of Isaiah 53, the Messiah. This is why Paul writes what he writes. I think we already covered that. The Zohar says that the Tzaddik, the righteous one, is the Yesod, or the foundation in Yah, the mystery, or the Sod, which is the wine that has been kept in its grapes from the 6 days in the beginning. So Paul in 1 Corinthians goes on to say after that, but Elohim has revealed it to us by his mystery, for the Spirit searches into everything, even the deep things of Elohim. For who is the Son of Man who knows that it is a Son of Man except the Spirit of the Son of Man that is in him? And also that which is in Elohim, no man knows except the Spirit of Elohim. Now we have not received the Spirit of the world, but the Spirit that is from Elohim, so that we might know the gifts that were given to us from Elohim. Which also we speak not in the teaching of words of wisdom of the sons of men, but in the teaching of the Spirit, and the spiritual men are compared spiritual things. Verse 14, for the Son of Man who is in the nephesh does not, or in the soul, does not receive spiritual things, for they are foolishness to him, and he is not able to know that which is judged spiritually. Now the spiritual man judges all things, and is not judged from man. For who knows the mind of Yahweh, that he might instruct him? Isaiah 40:13. But we have the mind of Messiah. So the Yayin HaMashamar is identified with the words of wisdom, and with the mind of Yahweh, and with the blood of the Messiah. Okay. So now we understand the Yayin HaMashamar. In Isaiah, I'm sorry, so rereading now, 1 Enoch chapter 48, verse 6. For this reason he has been chosen and hidden before him, and before the creation of the world, and forevermore. Talking about the Messiah and the Yayin HaMashamar, which is the blood and mind of the Messiah and the wisdom. Okay, it's going to get good here. Verse 7, and the wisdom of Yahweh Zavaot has revealed him to the set apart and righteous, for he has preserved the lot of the righteous, because they have hated and despised this world of unrighteousness, and have hated all its works and ways in the name of Yahweh Zavaot, for in his name they are saved, according to his good pleasure has it been regarded to their life. So here we have now being saved in this name. Remember, those who denied the name, it didn't go well for them. In these days, downcast in countenance shall the kings of the earth have become, and the strong who possess the land, because of the works of their hands. For on the day of their anguish and affliction they shall not be able to save themselves. How do you save yourself? By your own efforts. Verse 9, I will give them over unto the hands of my chosen, as straw in the fire, so shall they burn before the face of the set apart, as lead in the water shall they sink before the face of the righteous, and no trace of them shall any more be found. And sounds like Isaiah 66, the last few verses, And on the day of their affliction there shall be rest on the earth, and before them they shall fall and not rise, and there shall be no one to take them with his hands and raise them, for they have denied Yahweh Zavaot and his Messiah. The name of Yahweh Zavaot be blessed. So Yahweh Zavaot is the name that's given to the Son of Man, to the Messiah. It was actually given to him before anything else before the universe was created. And it's the Messiah has been kept since that time for us. And it's in his name, according to the book of Enoch, that we're saved, and those who deny that name are not. So let's talk first Enoch, next handout, first Enoch 48:10 and Deuteronomy 18:19. Deuteronomy 18:19, the Torah says those who do not give, well, let's look at Deuteronomy 18 in the Torah. Deuteronomy 18, verses 18 and 19. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brothers like unto you, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. Now, there's plenty of the rabbinic literature. We're not going into that to identify this figure in verse 18 as the Messiah. Verse 19, and it shall come to pass that whoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, and then it says in the Hebrew and in our English translation, I will require it of him. That's what the Masoretic text has. I will require it of him. What does that mean? Well, we have a lot of clues as to what that means. The Targum Onkelos to this passage says, my word shall take vengeance upon him. By the way, the term word or memra in the Targums has a very special meaning. We could go into that, but long version short, it can be well tied to the Messiah, i.e., like we see in John chapter 1, Yochanan chapter 1, the first few verses, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim, and then the Word became flesh. Okay, so my word shall take vengeance upon him in Targum Onkelos. Similarly, the Septuagint, the Greek translators rendered it, I shall take vengeance upon him. The Mishnah explains this phrase in Mishnah Sanhedrin 11:5. We're looking at a handout here, if you didn't realize that, in 1 Enoch 48:10 and Deuteronomy 18:19. Mishnah Sanhedrin 11:5, his death is at the hands of heaven, for it is written, and it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which the prophet shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. So the Mishnah interprets it to mean death at the hands of heaven, and this is reiterated in the Gemara to this passage in the Talmud, which says, but he who suppresses his prophecy or disregards the words of a prophet, or a prophet who transgresses his own words, is slain by heaven, for it is written, all it shall come to pass, whoever will not hearken. Now this may be understood as implying to proclaim and hearkening himself unto my words, and the verse concludes, I will require it of him, Deuteronomy 18:19, i.e., he shall be slain by heaven. Babylonian Talmud 89a. So there is the same concept in the rabbinic literature that the rejectors of the prophet, like Moses, it doesn't go well for them. Okay, we are out of time today, so tomorrow we're going to start out talking about how marvelous this material we just studied was. I will summarize some of the things that it teaches here real quickly, but we're going to talk about why these passages that we've just covered and more that are coming up are the very reasons that the rabbis suppressed the book of Enoch. And we're going to make a really good case for that. We're actually going to cite rabbinic sources that essentially admit to that. Okay? So we'll pick up on that next week. But what we've learned so far in the book of Enoch here is that the Messiah comes, he dwells among us, he came, he dwelt among us. There was no place found for him among us. We didn't like him. It didn't go well for him among us. We sent him back upstairs where he dwelt amongst the angels, and he sat at the right hand as the Son of Man upon the throne. And those that deny him, it doesn't go well for them. But those who accept his name are saved in his name, which is the name of Yahweh, which he was given from before the creation, and that he has been this secret, this mystery has been held for us since the beginning of creation, for us to have, and that he is Son of Man that sits on a throne next to the right hand of the Ancient of Days, and that we are saved in his name. And if we reject him and are not saved in his name, um, well, that's what was referred to earlier in the book of Enoch, and we may cover it again. It will be better for them if they had not been born. They will be, um, as we just read in the Mishnah, slain by the hands of heaven, and as we read in the Targum Onkelos, his word will take vengeance on them. All right. So we're going to go ahead and close. I want to remind everybody that we definitely need your support. The rent is actually due yesterday. So and at the moment we don't have it. So please donate if you can to support these teachings. You can send donations via PayPal to donations at, and then the letters W, N as in Nancy, A, E, .org. WNAE.org. So it's donations at WNAE.org via PayPal. We definitely need your financial support to continue the written studies that we're publishing and the video teachings that we're doing. If you look online also at NazareneSpace.com and you go to the blog page, click on along the top to go to the blog page, you'll see on the right hand column of the page down towards the bottom, you'll see online commentaries. And there I'm posting commentaries, my commentaries on the scriptures over a period of time. Just started working some on Isaiah, and written some on Genesis chapter 1 and Matthew chapter 1 as well. And I'll spend years filling that out and fleshing it out, leaving behind, I guess, some of my life's work. Okay, so take a look at that. And of course, I hope you appreciate our regular blogs and these video teachings, and that you'll perhaps consider supporting the work that we're doing. Shalom, everybody. Next week, we're going to pick up and we're going to talk about First Enoch, this material in First Enoch that we've already covered, and why the rabbis, for these very reasons, suppressed the book and what they said. And we're going to then start moving forward, beginning with First Enoch chapter 49. Shalom, everybody.